And this is Jack Downs with a somewhat updated introduction to the very large Dreamweaver tutorial. First of all, as you'll see on the screen here, I want to show you some splash screens that you may get in the newer versions of Dreamweaver. I'm going to make this a somewhat generic introduction, just to say that Dreamweaver has been through a number of updates in recent years. They changed the number, and you may be using Dreamweaver 2000 and who knows what, but to this point, they really have not changed the functions dramatically at all. Just a couple of screens a little bit here and there. So you really don't have to worry about it. Yes, in the tutorial that follows, the very long tutorial, some of my screens may look a little different, the colors may be a little different, but honestly, it's still underneath pretty much the same program, and pretty much all the choices are the same too. I will go over a couple little things that can happen, and also I want to tell you not to stress about Dreamweaver, because you can get through it, even if we have to work around some things too. Just so you know, Dreamweaver is web authoring software, which is somewhat commonly used, but maybe not that commonly. I think most real designers are working through programs like Notepad++ or things like that, code writers. Anyway, one of the things that's new about the newer versions of Dreamweaver is that you may get a splash screen that looks something like this. Introducing the all-new Dreamweaver. It looks exciting. It says, have you used Dreamweaver previously? You might be tempted to say, no, I'm new, because you probably are, but no, you can just say, yes, I have. I mean, might as well just say that, because then you can avoid a lot of stuff you don't really need. Okay, I'm actually just showing you this in a still from video, so I don't have to go through it. Then next it'll show something like this. It'll say, welcome back. And it'll say, what would you like for your theme color? I really suggest you use the light color, which I find a lot easier on my eyes. You could change it later anyway, so don't worry about it. But why don't you go ahead and click that. You may get this every time in the lab, I'm not sure. Unless you get lucky and use the same computer again, they might sort of keep track of it a little bit, but you'll probably have to do this every time. And then finally, it's going to say this probably. Nice, now choose your workspace. And then you do want the standard workspace for sure. Okay, use the standard workspace. But you can change that again later too. And then after that, it's going to start to show you a little screen about what's new. And it's going to look something like this kind of. And you can go ahead and go to the X and exit out. I mean, you can watch your stuff if you want. It's not going to hurt you, but it's not going to really help you either. Okay, so I wanted to tell you that. There's these splash screens. I also wanted to tell you that you may, probably you're going to use a computer in the lab. Don't go buy Dreamweaver yourself. You're probably going to use a computer in the lab or in Ward 115 or in the big computer lab. That's great. Maybe though you want to try the virtual lab. I'll probably suggest a video to you if you want. If you've used the virtual lab for other things, it's very doable. During COVID times, we used the virtual lab for this project. And then you can, of course, sign on to any of the computers that have a full Adobe suite or Adobe CC, and then you would be able to use it remotely. But you know, it is a little awkward, and you have to be used to it, and you have to be careful to save your work and make sure to take your work with you from another computer someplace else. And again, if you're interested into it, maybe I can suggest a video for you to watch and some other instructions too. So talk to me about it. If you already know about the virtual lab and you want to use it, you know how to use it, that's great. You can do it for this project, of course. The only caution I'll make for you is just say that when you are saving your work, you want to grab your whole project folder, and if you're trying to send that to yourself, you might think you want to use email, but in this project, you're not going to be able to email that folder. It's not going to like it because there's some programming that's in it. So you're probably going to have to either throw it on your Google Drive, the entire zipped folder, after you've done some work and you're saving it and you're moving on, working later maybe, or you could use Moodle. And I'll probably show in the classroom that I have made a Moodle folder called Moodle Transfer Folder. You could drop something in there, go just load it up like you're loading up an assignment. It is an assignment thing, but I'm not going to grade anything in there. It's for you to throw files in if you want, and then you can get them from someplace else. So that's an option too. Okay, what else do I want to tell you? Again, yes, things might look a little different, but don't worry about it. And I guess that's all for right now. I'm going to move on to another topic here in just a moment. As this is just an introductory video to the actual introduction and stuff that begins after this, I'm jumping ahead to a little problem area that does have to do with the difference between the versions. It's not a problem, but it's just something to pay attention to. So if you were actually following along, you could make a note in the instructions on page 9 where I talk about you're going to set up your first div. And when you do that, you're going to be establishing the style sheet at the same time. This would be part 2, the very beginning of it in the instructions. Don't worry about that. Just you can make a note on that page and then remember this is what I talked about when you get to that point. Till then, you probably haven't paid much attention over here to this file, this section, these panels, except to notice that you have your files section. If you properly have been using site definition, as I explained, therefore you would see the actual files you're working with, and by that point, near the beginning here, you would have already established 2 HTML documents. I can also see that I have them here. Okay, sites, which doesn't have much of anything on it and won't, and then index, which is almost where all our work will go. I can see them here too, and there's not much else going on here. I can tell I have site definition working because I can see all the files over here. Good. Notice though that soon we will be using some of these other tabs, okay? And this one in particular, there's a problem that it's only one column. So look, I can hover over the edge and my cursor changes, and I want to make it go to 2 columns. Boom, it goes to 2. With 2 columns, it's going to be much easier to use, and it's going to match the way the screen looks later. So if you're ever using the CSS designer, which we won't for some time yet in the instructions, you want to make it wider so you can see 2 columns. So that's what will make it look like it does on the screen. I believe in the earlier versions of this program, some of the earlier versions, they actually had it start this way automatically, the screen setup. But you can just make it a little wider to that point. However, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing the insert, which could be wide or narrow. It doesn't much matter. So I'm looking at my instructions here, and it says, with the base side beat open. Good, yes, I do. If sites is still open, you can close it. Well, I guess I could. It doesn't really matter, but I might as well just close it. If there was unsaved changes, it would ask me to save them. Click anywhere in the live view, it says. Here's where you could run into problems. Have you noticed that there is a live and design view here? And split, of course, right? So if I look under live, I see live and design. If by chance you've left it on design, that's going to make things it won't be bad, but it'll just work differently. You really want it to be on live, actually, almost all the time in these instructions. I don't know if I ask you to do design mode anywhere, probably. So split view with live. When I do that, click on it says, where am I? Yes. We're going to, in the insert panel, we're going to insert an HTML, we're going to insert a div. So what do I mean by an HTML? I'm on the insert panel now. It's probably almost certainly going to start in the HTML, which is where they start. In other words, where you probably are starting already. And you see div as a possibility, and you click on div. Okay. So do notice that I at first had clicked into the design view. I'm going to do Control Z just so you can see that. I clicked into the design view, or at least I had it active. That meant the body is selected here, you see? So then when I click on div, it automatically puts the div in the body. And notice that it gives you this placeholder text there. Also notice it gives you this little div plus mark thing on it there too. Okay. So we did div, inserts HTML, placeholder text. Blue border has a little tab on it with the name of the HTML element. Okay, it just says div right there. Good. Okay. Div element is generic container, as it explains. Yes, it is. Div element will contain or wrap all of this page elements. Let's call it the wrapper. Click on the plus button on the elements display. This is the elements display. This is the plus button. Okay. And it says class and ID here, right? Opens a field where you can add class or ID. Okay, good. Yes. We're going to type wrapper in there. So we just type the word wrapper. ER. Okay, good. And it says a pop-up panel appears alongside the element display, prompting you to select a source for the CSS rule. So we have to first hit the Enter key. I did not spell wrapper right. Okay, good. So I typed that in there, and I hit the Enter key, and then I get this. Here's something that I've noticed. Some people, if you were in not in the live mode with your split view in the design, you wouldn't get that little option to put in the div name here and so on. It would still create the div, and you could still go into the HTML and do it, and that would be fine. All right. But then you also probably wouldn't get this next selection here. But also, I've noticed that some people, when they put in the name of the div and they hit enter, they only get like half this menu. It says select a source and select a media query. You might only get the select a media query. And that happens, just hit enter again. For some reason, for some people, it seems to take 2 enters to get that. I don't think it'll happen to you, but I just mentioned this as a possibility. And I don't know if this is actually a versions thing or what. But anyway, you get to this point here, right? And this is where we need to select a source. And do notice that what it means is it says define in page or create new CSS file, which is what we want to do. This is at the moment of creating the first div is when you can create the CSS file. And then we continue with the instructions as shown here. And it tells you to create and we're going to call this one responsive. Okay. And it says add as link. That is correct. All right. And we could browse. We probably should browse just to see where it's going to make it. We want to make it in the folder called styles, and we say save. Okay. Oh, it's a file name. Oh, it's a file name. This is where I want it, responsive. Okay, say save, and then we go ahead and say okay. So we gave it a name. Well, first we browsed, we give it a name and a location at the same time. And we say okay, good. Notice that this created a link, which you will recognize as a style sheet link in the head. Okay, let's say something went wrong here. This is the key reason I wanted to tell you this. And I'll repeat this idea several times in the other videos. Let's say you didn't get the right menus, you created the div, but you didn't get a chance to make a style sheet. Don't get upset about it. Don't, it's not that big a deal. Remember, at any time, you can come in here and create and just start typing in the code view. You know how to type a link for a CSS document. You could just do that. And it would create the CSS document. Let's say later you have this style sheet set up, and for some reason something goes wrong, and you start to get CSS starts to build up in the head of the document. It starts to build an embedded style sheet. That's no big deal. Just go ahead and grab that stuff and go paste it into the style sheet. How do you get to the style sheet? I can see I actually have the style sheet right here right now. It is not very much of a style sheet. Nothing has happened yet, but it's created the style sheet there. I can also see if I went to my files panel that the style sheet is in the styles folder right there. I can double click on it and get to it that way too. So I guess the key thing here is to realize that at any time you can go into the code view and just type like you normally would have in Notepad++. Actually, at any time, you could save this stuff here. You could close the program. You could open up the files in Notepad++, and you could work on it there. And then later, you could come back and open it in Dreamweaver again. It wouldn't care, all right? It will keep track of this stuff. And if you show it where its things are, if you do the site, new site, that site definition step. And then also if it has a link to the style sheet, it will know where that is too. And then it will just keep on going fine. Okay, so that's going to be the end of this little add-on. So now you should be able to start back. And again, don't be surprised when some of the screens, the colors and things look a little different in the older version that you're going to see in the remaining videos. But because all your functions are still here. Key thing is that you can still get in here and type at any time. And of course, change your CSS designer. And watch out for which of these views you're on. Live is where you want to be. And if it screws up, if you do something wrong, don't worry. The best thing is to usually try to plow along to the end of that section, and then we can help you out. And because when you finish each section, we have the code and what it's going to look like at that point. All right. Good luck, and I hope it goes well for you.